guys, welcome to my channel, Audrey Reads. I hope you had a great week. I'm here every single Thursday to provide bookish content. Today, since we're in May now, officially, this year is going by so quickly. We are officially a third into the year. So if you guys have any reading goals, we should be a third of the way through. Somehow I'm there. My goal for this year is 55 books and I'm at 26. We're actually almost at the halfway mark. I made a flex goal for 75. I think I might be able to hit it. That's the first time in my life I've ever read this much, ever. If you've watched previous videos of mine, you know that I'm a newer reader that's taking it seriously. I've read all my life, ever since I was a young tyke. However, I haven't enjoyed it and taken it seriously until probably 6 years ago. So for this video, since we're officially a third of the way through, I want to go through the books that I have read so far in the order that I've ranked them, lowest to highest. At the very end of this video, I'll put at number 1 my favorite book so far. I'll go through them one by one and then I'll give you what I rated them star-wise. And then after that, I'll give you a 1-minute overview slash my own review of each one. So let's stop wasting time and let's get started. Okay, here we go. First book and in last place. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I think that this book has a very important story that needs to be told. Rated it 1 star. I think this is my first 1-star rating ever. I try not to use it. The thing about this book is that it has a very important story that needs to be told and should be told. I do not like that the author made it a steamy romance and then we're all left at the end of the book traumatized because we're not walking through any of the psychological bullshit that's happening within the book. If you were to go and read it, look at the trigger warnings. The average rating on Goodreads on this one is 4.26. So I guess it just wasn't my cup of tea. With my own personal life, the stories that I've personally gone through, I'm sorry, Jennifer. It's not personal. I know that there are a lot of people out there that I know like it. So next one is Saving Noah. I took the recommendation off of Bookstagram for this one. I rated it 2 stars. Again, I try not to use the 2-star I really don't ever use those stars. So far we're off to a bad start. Average rating on Goodreads for this one is 4.01. And this one was hard for me. Again, back to those personal experiences. This is about a pedophile, the POV of a pedophile. I don't know if it's just mentally too hard for me or if it was just really bad. And then the ending had me questioning my own thoughts and beliefs. It challenged the shit out of me. Maybe I should bring it up to 3 stars, but again, trigger warnings. If that sounds like something you want to read, please do, but wasn't for me. Now, I will say those were the only 2 books that I absolutely could not handle. I finished them, I got through them, but the rest of this list, for the most part, I enjoyed at least the story. So let's get to that part. All right, next one is Triptych by Karin Slaughter. I'm a big Karin Slaughter fan. A lot of people either love her or hate her. I'm a lover of Karin Slaughter. I know that we're talking about traumatizing books. She's really good at that kind of writing. But this one is more of like an investigative book. It's the first series of the Will Trent series. The average rating on this one on Goodreads is 4.13. I personally rated it as a 3-star only because it wasn't anything groundbreaking. I'll probably end up reading the second one. I liked Will Trent. The story itself wasn't, like I said, it's not anything that I personally have never read before. I can see this being like an emotional support series for sure. But rated it 3 stars. Not my favorite Karin Slaughter book, but it wasn't the worst book I've ever read. Okay, next on the list, Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I actually like this book. This is about a guy who is mute, who unexpectedly finds love. Very much a love story. Has an average rating of 4.23 on Goodreads. I personally rated it 3 stars. The story, I liked it. The writing, specifically in the smut scenes, this is weird to talk about on the internet, but I was feeling really awkward and I felt like the third person in the room, like I wasn't supposed to be there. And I found myself cringing a lot in this book. Then when she did go out of her range and used other words, they were really weird choices. But the story was unique. I liked it. I'm not a romance reader, so unfortunately, guys, the romances are always at the bottom. If you guys have like 5-star romance reads, please send them my way because I really want to be a romance reader. I really do. Okay, let's move on. Romanov by Nadine Brandis. I rated this one 3 stars. It has an incredible premise. This is a fantasy retelling of the Romanovs' death in Russia. Anastasia, the last Tsars of Russia back in the early 1900s. This is the story of their family, but with a little bit of a fantasy twist. That alone is what made me want to read this because I love historical fiction and then I also love fantasy books. So it's like marrying my 2 favorite things into one book. However, the reason I rated it 3 stars. By the way, the average rating on Goodreads for this one is 3.76. The reason I rated it 3 stars was because the author left out so many details of character building for the Romanov. They were portrayed as this perfect family that did no wrong, that had perfect control of Russia while they were Tsar. And if you've ever looked into the history of this family, these are the rebellions that killed them. She hardly even touched on England's hand in all of that and what led up to the Romanov family's execution. It's a great story, but that's all it is a story. I would not call this historical fiction. I think this book would have been extremely impactful if she had done more character building on all of the sides. So I don't know. I just went into it thinking that it had a lot of promise, and then I was just really disappointed. But the story itself was fun. I liked it. And that's why I gave it 3 stars. Next on my list, I gotta use a list because I have so many books. I was so excited to read this. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this one. This is Catwoman Soul Stealer by Sarah J. Maas. I told you I was gonna read it. I did read it. I rated it 3 stars. The official Goodreads rating right now is 4.07 stars. The only reason I read this and gave it 3 stars is because I'm not a Batman fan, and I don't know, I still to this day, if anyone knows, please put it in the comments. What is the thing that makes Batman so annoying? Batman isn't so much in this story as his assistant is, who is equally as annoying. I don't know what it is. I've never been a fan. And I was giving this so much hope because I was like, you know what? Sarah J. Maas is going to write it. I don't know, guys. I was just bored. If you're a DC fan, if you're a Batman fan, if you're a Catwoman fan, definitely read it. Am I just being a hater? I really tried. I pushed my way through this entire book. I read the whole thing, front to back. Anyways, let me know. Okay, moving on. I have 2 more 3-star books, and then we're going to get into the 4 stars and 5 stars. So first one is The Handmaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. Guys, I love Freida. I love Freida McFadden. I've read most of her books. There's a handful of books at this point I haven't read. I'm talking less than 5. It's hard to read her books now without comparing them to the other ones. The Housemaid's Secret was good, but it didn't hit. The end of the book did not hit as hard as The Housemaid. It didn't hit like Neverlie. I just have these unreal expectations set for Miss Freida. Freida, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this from me, but at the same time, you've done some really amazing writing. And now I'm expecting the ending to be something I didn't guess. And I guessed half of this ending, and I was really sad about that. So I gave it 3 stars. I could probably bump it up to 4. It wasn't as memorable as the other one. I'm sorry. The Goodreads rating is 4.26. So don't necessarily listen to me on this one. Next up, again, we're doing Freida. I got to read The Teacher by Freida McFadden. Woo! I actually like this book a lot. But again, it's the same reasoning. This isn't a 3-star for me. This is more of like a 3.5 stars. I could probably bring it up to 4 stars. I actually enjoyed the first 80% much better than the last 20%. So yeah, I gave it the 3.5 stars. What are you gonna do? This is YouTube. You can't do anything to me, okay? Exit out of the video if that offends you. This one currently has a 3.97 average on Goodreads. So I guess I'm not alone in this thought. 3.5, 4 stars, maybe. Next up, Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This book was so freaking fun. I loved it. The only reason I rated it 4 stars was because it was kind of slow in some parts, but the storyline itself was so much fun. So yeah, I rated it 4 stars. The average rating on Goodreads right now is 4.16 stars. I liked this book because it reminded me to slow down and be appreciative of the things around me. It's about this guy who dies. He finds himself in this tea shop after the fact. It's just a story of him and the people at that tea shop, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but the story was great. There's lots of great life lessons in that book. I would have put it at 5 stars, but there were just some parts that were slow. Everyone's been insisting I read his book, The House in the Cerulean Sea. I have it. It's right there. But my holds list at the library is maxed out, guys. I have to catch up before I get up over on that bookshelf. We're getting to it, I promise. It will be finished by the end of this year. Let's just put it that way. Next book, Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed. I really liked this book because not only did I learn a bunch as far as hiking goes, there's a lot of applicable things in the book that you can use while you're hiking. I live in the Rocky Mountains and I'm hiking all summer, so it was fun because I was able to keep up with the lingo a little bit. But the book just goes over all the life lessons she learned as she was going through the trail. I think this book should be in the top 100 books that you should read in your lifetime at some point because there are so many things within the book that you can apply back to yourself, whether you're a hiker or not. There are so many great life lessons within the story. The Goodreads average is 4.06. I rated it 4 stars. I rounded down. I probably would have rated it 4.5. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because she went through every single detail of the hike. And I was like, okay, I get that this is your retelling, but this part is kind of boring, sister. But it's her story, so, I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes life is boring, and that's part of the story. It didn't have me by the grips from beginning to end, I will say that. But I think that the story itself was incredible. Okay, next up, I've got Crescent City, House of Flame and Shadow, and House of Sky and Breath. I am gonna do these together because it's the same series. I read House of Earth and Blood in December, so it's not going to be on this list. I read these back in January. House of Sky and Breath, which is the second book, absolutely wrecked me. This one I actually gave 5 stars. House of Flame and Shadow, I rate 4 stars, a strong 4 stars, 4.5 stars. The reason I gave this one 5 stars is because the ending of this book is insane. These last two pages make the entire book 5 stars. If you're an ACOTAR girly, all I have to say is please, for the love, read Throne of Glass and Crescent City. You will not be sad about that, girl. I promise you. The reason I rated this one 4 stars, House of Flame and Shadow, is because the buildup from House of Sky and Breath was so intense. This specific book, I don't think it did what we were expecting it was going to do. So it was a little bit of a letdown there. However, it's Sarah J. Maas. So I know for a fact she's doing this on purpose. She knows that. And it's all going to come back around in the later book. So I know if she were to ever watch this, she would be giggling. But for how many pages it is, I was just expecting a lot more of a plot twist. 4 stars on this one. 5 stars on House of Sky and Breath. If you're curious, I did rate House of Earth and Blood 4 stars. Just because it was so much. There was so much world building. I don't know if I've ever read a book with that much world building. And I'm a Brandon Sanderson fan. So that says a lot. Okay, so House of Flame and Shadows average on Goodreads is 4.23. And the House of Sky and Breath is 4.5. I think there was some general consensus happening on that one. I will say that if you're starting the Sarah J. Maas fandom world, don't start with Crescent City. Start with ACOTAR, then Throne of Glass, then Crescent City. And then you'll be a happy camper, okay? Speaking of Brandon Sanderson, the next book on my list is Tress of the Emerald Sea. Look how beautiful this book is. Look at this. That's the inside cover. It has art, you guys. Are you kidding me? I love this physical book. It is so beautiful. I think it's one of the prettiest books that I have on my bookshelf. But As far as the story goes, I've never read anything like it. Brandon Sanderson actually wrote this for his wife, and then it later went into publication. But as he was writing this, he was not expecting it to go into publication. So all the rules are off the table as he writes this book. He breaks the fourth wall several times in this book. He's essentially talking to you as the reader. So if you're reading the book and you're like, what? He actually calls that out and he's like, you're probably thinking blah, blah, blah. Well, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it's lots of fun in that way. As I'm doing this video, I'm like, I don't even know why I rated this 4 stars because it's such a fun book. I'll probably end up reading this one again. This is going to be a reread for sure. Like a decade down the road when I'm like, I mistrust, you know? If you want a book to distract you from your real life, I highly recommend this book. It was so much fun. It kind of gives Hobbit vibes, but the main character is a female lead. If you've never read Brandon Sanderson and you want to start his books, this would be a great option for you. Next up, The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I read this one because this is the author of The Silent Patient. I personally like that book. Some people did not, but I personally liked it. If you liked that book, you might like this one. So I rated this one 4 stars. The rating on Goodreads is 3.63. The premise was good, but I rated it 4 stars because, again, it didn't hit. The ending was not anything crazy. If you like books with twists, does have twists, but you can kind of see them coming. Take that as you will. Okay, the rest of these 4 stars could easily be 5 stars. I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I might need to go in and change some of these ratings. So take my rating with a grain of salt. We're going to go off of the Goodreads average ratings. Pay attention to those more because these could all be easily 5-star books. First up, okay, this one here, Light Changes Everything by Nancy Turner. I saw this at my thrift store and I was like, this looks like a cool book. And then I go onto Libby and there's like a 200 book hold for it. I was like, oh, cool. It turns out I saved some money on this one. This has a little bit of historical fiction. It's set in Arizona back in 1907, before it was a state, when it was still a territory. So you kind of get to see how the US responded to that, which was really cool. I haven't really read a lot of books surrounding that topic. So that was really enlightening to me personally. And then the storyline just took my heart and broke it. I loved the story. I loved the writing. Nancy is brilliant. If you like novels, if you like historical fiction, I wouldn't say it's 100% historical fiction. There's a little bit of sprinkle of it, okay? If that's something you like, definitely try this book. Freaking amazing. I don't want to give away the storyline. This book pissed me off. I laughed, I cried, my heart burst a little. I'm a different person after this book. The rating on Goodreads is 4.09. Okay, so this next book is Diana, Her True Story in Her Own Words. This is the book by Andrew Morton, the one that caused a huge ruckus the second it came out. Princess Diana got with Andrew and they mingled together. She made these recordings, used a third person to bring them to Andrew. Andrew would listen to them, write the book, and then he sent the questions back to Diana. She answered them. It was like a whole thing. When the book came out, the entire royal family almost lost their minds. It was banned in England for a while there because of the outrage. So this book has been on my TBR for years. I finally was able to get around to read it. I am so angry for Princess Diana. She deserved more. She deserved better from us. The storytelling is great. I think if you have any interest in the monarchy, if you have any interest in how all of that is done and the current standing of where everything is, the king and queen consort that are currently on the throne today, I have select words for both of them because of this book. So. Camilla specifically. This book just made me so angry for Diana. That's all I'm saying. It's also rumored that this book is what put the last nail in the coffin for Charles and Diana's marriage. But I would argue that maybe it was Charles cheating on Diana for the entire marriage with Camilla. I'm just saying. This book is rated 3.82 on Goodreads. This is very niche. So I get it. I'm a huge Diana fan. I've always been a Diana fan since I was a child. I always looked up to her. So I don't think this book is going to be for everyone, but for those of you that it is for, 5 stars. That's all I'm saying. Okay, next up is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is on the line of 4 stars, 5 stars. I didn't know where to put it, so it's just in the list. It's in this part of the list. That's where we're putting it. I think on Goodreads, I officially have it at 4 stars. But again, this is one of those where I'm like, maybe I should change it because the ending to this one, I was not expecting at all. She freaking got me. And I love that for her because this is what's going to keep her career going. If you like thrillers, if you haven't read it yet, please read it. There's a reason the hype is so big around it. The average rating on Goodreads is 4.33 stars. It's like teetering on the line because it was kind of corny. There are corny parts to it. There are definitely plot holes, but it's Frida. Of course there's plot holes. It's supposed to be fun. And so, I don't know. Take that with what you want. Yeah, if you're a thriller fan and you haven't read The Housemaid by Frida, please read it. Okay, next up, this is a reread that I had to do after Catwoman Soul Stealer. And that is The Court of Thorns and Roses. I had to reread it because I just missed them, you know? I just was like missing the characters in this book. And then again, this one I think is also on the line of 4 stars, 5 stars because the first half is extremely corny. And everybody knows that, but it also deters readers. I have so many friends I've recommended this book to, and they stopped reading it halfway through because of the corniness level in that first half. This book is your gateway to your best friends, okay? So just stick it through and read it. Once you get here, you're like, oh, okay, I can get behind this. This is great. And then once you get onto A Court of Mist and Fury, I think A Court of Mist and Fury is in my top 5 books because of the character building she did in this book. I hate to add to the hype of ACOTAR, but there's a reason, you guys. These books will always have a place in my heart. Okay, the rest of these books are solid 5 stars. The first one, don't make fun of me. This is my list, okay? But I'm just a girl, okay? So the first one on my 5-star list is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. Okay, here's the thing. If she actually wrote that book, she has been trolling us the entire time she's been famous. Her dad, because he had so much say in what she did on her daily life, he like put this mask over her of somebody that isn't her. And I loved this book because I was able to see a clearer picture of Britney Spears. I'm just a girl from the 90s, okay? I don't know if I put it over some of the books I just talked about, but like honestly, if she wrote this book, she is a brilliant woman, and don't knock it until you try it. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. Again, this is a niche book. This is a niche topic. So if you think you're not going to like it, trust yourself. I'm not here to try and convince you. I'm just here to tell you if you were curious about the book, I recommend reading it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Goodreads rating is 3.9 star. Next up is The Little Book of Luga. This book is great because I try to read it once a year. This one and The Little Book of Huga. This one here and this one here, if you get seasonal depression, buy this combo. They're really small. They've got graphs, pictures. They're super easy to read. Most of them are just like little pages of tips, but these books are my little Bibles to get through seasonal depression. I do live in the Rocky Mountains, so it gets dark by October and it goes through April, and there's lots of snow happening throughout all of that. So I just highly recommend the combo, honestly. This one I read this year. This one I try to read in the fall. And then this one I just recently read. So yeah, highly recommend. And they're so cute. Look how cute these are. The Little Book of Luga has a rating of 3.99. And The Little Book of Yuga has 3.77. I'm assuming because these are all very self-explanatory things. However, the reminder sometimes is necessary. So I just like reading them annually. Truly. Next up is another self-help. I'm sorry, Atomic Habits. I wanted to see what the fuss was about. Everyone's been talking about this freaking book, so I picked it up. I actually really enjoyed this one. If you're feeling like you can't get back into your habits, specifically since either a traumatic time or COVID or anything like that, I would read this. You're not reading like these Pinterest board quotes the whole book, which I appreciate. I sometimes get weary about self-help books because of that, but he's spent his entire life researching habits. And he's built some great habits in the meantime while he was doing that. So he's just been sharing his wisdom. If you have a hard time going to the gym every day, getting work done every day, if you're self-employed, read this book. The average rating on this one on Goodreads is 4.36. Okay, no more self-help. Time for my top 5 books of the year. I'm so excited to tell you these. Okay, here we go. Number 5 is Circe by Madeline Miller. Madeline? For me personally, this was kind of a slow start just because I was never interested in Greek mythology in school. And so I had to remind myself of some of these Greek gods that are mentioned in the book. But the storyline itself about Circe is phenomenal. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's a beautiful story of learning who you are and overcoming huge trials in a way that you didn't expect you could do. The average rating on this book is 4.24. I rated it 5 stars, a full 5 stars. Loved this book. A+, highly recommend. Okay, number 4, we're doing a countdown. It's The Unmaking of June Farrow. This goes in my top books of all time. This was such a fun read. It says a novel, but it kind of has a magical twist. Not kind of, it truly does. I've never read anything like this book. It was so creative, so imaginative. And Adrian took it to another level that I've never, ever read before. This was so much fun, and I will definitely reread it in the future when I miss June and her family. Average rating on this one on Goodreads is 4.19 stars. And yes, I rated it 5. Now for my top 3 books of the year. Drumroll, please. Kristen Hanna's The Women. This is a highly anticipated new novel of hers. It broke me, guys. Sorry, a moment of silence. I feel, after reading this book, I felt sad. I felt ashamed. I'm like getting ready to cry. It makes me cry in this YouTube. This is such a special story. This is a historical fiction novel of the women that served in Vietnam. And more importantly, God, I can't stop crying. And more importantly, the aftermath after Vietnam. If you want a swift ass kicking from a book, it's this one. Kristen Hanna is my favorite author, and she did it again. And that's all we're going to say. Average rating on this one is, unsurprisingly, 4.67. I can't stop crying. Okay, number 2, which probably actually ties with number 3, is The Nightingale. I did a reread of this after I read The Women because I was like, wait, which one's better? I can't remember. So I did a reread of this. I read this originally back in 2019. This is the book that got me into reading. This one right here. I didn't realize a story, even in movies, could capture you the way that she did with this book. Bury me with this book, please. And to answer your question, I have no clue which one's better. I can't decide. Yeah, if you haven't read Kristen Hanna, please do. She is an incredible author and an incredible storyteller. Average rating on this one on Goodreads is 4.62. Again, I'm not surprised at all. Okay, so now let's go back to crying. My number 1 book of the year so far, Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I didn't know what this was about when I first started it. I just saw that a lot of people, including my sisters, had rated it on Goodreads as a 5 star. I was also in a rut, so I was searching the top rated books of all time. It's up there with Harry Potter and Kristen Hanna. This is her first book. It's her memoir. She was the victim of Brock Turner. I'm not rating this 5 stars because of the story itself. I rated it 5 stars because of her storytelling and her writing. Obviously, this story is going to be impactful. Obviously, this story is going to be hard. But the way she was able to articulate it and clearly communicate what she was feeling, what she was going through, and the aftermath of it, it helped me personally try and articulate those same things with my own personal story. Unfortunately, I could relate to this. It gave me the courage to put to words my own story, and that it doesn't have to be this lingering question at all times. I do have the power to process it. I do have the power to try and move forward with it. I don't have to be stuck in the past because of this. So thank you, Chanel Miller, if you are watching this. God, I'm crying again. Definitely my top 5 books of all time. So this year has kind of given me a punch in the face. There have been some books on here that have let me down, but then that top 5 list made it worth it. All of the sorting and trying to figure it out made all of that reading worth it. Those last 3 books that I talked about, The Women, The Nightingale, and Know My Name, those 3 books are officially on my top 10 books of all time. I feel so lucky that just in the first third of this year, I'm already moving books down from my top 10. And that's just really cool to me. I just feel really lucky, even though I had to read 1 and 2 star books this year. Guys, this video was really hard to make in the sense that reading brings out parts of you that you didn't know were in there. Reading brings out emotions and feelings and relatability, and the storytelling is impactful. I'm excited to see what the rest of the year holds, the rest of the 2/3. My goal is to read 50 books between now and December 31st. So we'll see if it happens. Anyways, if you found this video helpful at all, or if you took any of my recommendations and you've added a few books to your TBR, I highly recommend subscribing. I do post new videos every single Thursday. They are book content related every single week, and we get to see each other and hang out with each other. So what's the downside of making a new book friend? You know, there isn't one in my eyes. I really hope this video helped. Love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.